Hey, nightmare seekers. Welcome back to the Nightmare States, your late-night portal to the unexplainable, the unholy, and the utterly terrifying true stories that keep you up at 3 a.m. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because tonight, we're crossing the pond to a sleepy suburb in 1970s England, where a single mom and her kids thought their worst fears were just bedtime stories, until the walls started whispering back. It was a sweltering August evening in 1977, the kind where the air hung heavy over the modest council estates of Enfield, North London. Green Street stretched out like a row of weary sentinels, identical brick terraces, their front doors painted in faded greens and blues, flower boxes wilting under the relentless summer sun. Number 284 was no different, a three-bedroom semi-detached house squeezed between its neighbors, home to Peggy Hodgson, a 43-year-old single mother scraping by on a seamstress's wage. With 4 children to feed, Johnny, 10, Margaret, 13, Janet, 11, and little Billy, 7. The place was a whirlwind of laundry piles, half-eaten suppers, and the constant hum of a telly tuned to whatever soap opera offered a brief escape. But on this night, as the sun dipped low and cast long shadows through the lace curtains, the ordinary cracked open like a fault line. Peggy had been noticing peculiarities for weeks. At first, it was the children complaining of knocks in the walls, sharp, rhythmic raps that echoed from the bedrooms upstairs, like someone tapping out a secret code. Toys would shift positions overnight, a doll's arm twisted in a way no child would leave it. Peggy dismissed it as the house settling, or perhaps the kids' overactive imaginations fueled by too many horror comics. But as the disturbances grew bolder, so did her fear. Furniture creaked without cause, doors slammed shut on their own. The children, especially the girls, seemed petrified, huddling together in the living room as if the shadows themselves were closing in. Desperate, her hands trembling on the rotary phone, Peggy dialed the police. "My house is haunted," she blurted to the operator, her voice cracking with exhaustion. It was 10 p.m. on August 31st, when 2 officers from Enfield Police Station arrived, WPC Carolyn Heaps and a male colleague. The house was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of boiled cabbage from dinner. Peggy, her face pale and drawn, led them upstairs to the girls' bedroom, where Janet and Margaret clutched each other on the edge of their shared bed. As WPC Heaps stepped into the room, her eyes widened. A heavy oak chair in the corner, solid, unremarkable, suddenly shuddered. Then, with a scraping screech against the linoleum floor, it slid 4 feet across the room, stopping abruptly as if pushed by an invisible hand. Heaps dropped to her knees, flashlight beam darting for strings, wires, or any mechanical trickery. Nothing. No one else in the room had moved. In her official report, filed the next day, she wrote, "The chair moved, approximately 4 feet, and there was no explanation for this." It was the first documented sighting, a crack in the veil of rationality that would draw the world to this unassuming doorstep. And so began the Enfield Poltergeist, one of the most infamous, exhaustively investigated, and bitterly debated cases of the supernatural in modern history. At its heart were Peggy's daughters, Janet and Margaret, 2 ordinary schoolgirls from a working-class family, thrust into a nightmare that blurred the line between prank and possession. What started as childish whispers of ghosties escalated into chaos that no one could ignore. Toys hurtled through the air like missiles, Lego bricks and marbles pelted visitors with uncanny precision. Bricks appeared from nowhere, thudding against the walls from inside the house. Faint knocking evolved into thunderous bangs that rattled the foundations, waking the neighbors in the dead of night. Skeptics wasted no time. "It's just the girls mucking about," some muttered, eyeing the siblings' mischievous grins. Attention seeking in a broken home? A classic trope, but the phenomena didn't stay confined to the children's claims. Adults, staid, no-nonsense types, began bearing witness. Neighbors Vic and Peggy Nottingham, roused by the commotion on that first frantic night, heard the knocks themselves and watched in horror as a chest of drawers marched across the bedroom floor, as if animated by spite. One burly neighbor, John Burkham, recounted a slipper launching from the house and smacking him square in the forehead while he stood outside. "It came out of nowhere," he later told investigators, rubbing the welt. Another officer, returning for a follow-up, swore he saw a chair rise inches off the ground before crashing down. By September, nearly 30 people, journalists, clergy, even a lollipop lady named Hazel Short, had seen the impossible with their own eyes. 17 provided sworn statements to police or researchers. Hallucinations en masse? Or something far more sinister lurking in the Hodgson home? Word spread like wildfire through the tabloids. The Daily Mirror splashed the story across its front page on September 10, "Poltergeist Terror," screamed the headline, accompanied by grainy photos of wide-eyed Janet clutching a teddy bear. Reporters swarmed Green Street, turning the quiet cul-de-sac into a circus. BBC Radio 4 producer Rosalind Morris arrived on September 11, microphone in hand, and caught a chair skittering across the floor live on air. It was inexplicable, she broadcast, her voice laced with unease. The Hodgson children, unaccustomed to the spotlight, appeared on television, their small faces solemn as they described toys orbiting the room like satellites and guttural whispers slithering from the vents. Believers nodded solemnly. Doubters smirked, whispering of hidden strings and sibling collusion. Yet the activity intensified, mocking the cynics. Drawers yanked open and slammed shut in rhythmic defiance. A typewriter clacked out gibberish messages in the dead of night. With local authorities dismissing it as domestic unrest, Peggy turned to the experts. The Society for Psychical Research, SPR, a venerable group founded in 1882 to probe the fringes of the mind and spirit. On September 5, Maurice Grosse, a gruff, chain-smoking inventor with a wartime past and a penchant for ghost hunting, arrived at the door, notebook in hand. Joined days later by the erudite guy Lyon Playfair, a Brazilian-born author fluent in 5 languages, they set up camp in the cramped living room. Both men were seasoned. Grosse had investigated hauntings since the 1940s, Playfair had dabbled in ESP experiments. But Enfield hit them like a freight train. "This is the poltergeist case of the century," Grosse confided to his diary after just one night, when a chair flipped end over end in the girl's bedroom. Over the next 18 months, the duo logged more than 2,000 incidents, meticulous entries in leather-bound journals, backed by hours of audio tape. Chairs levitated and danced. A heavy oak sideboard tilted precariously, spilling its contents. Toys, teddy bears, plastic horses, whizzed past their heads like bullets. Puddles of water materialized on the carpet, icy and untraceable. One evening, as Playfair sat vigil, a red cushion sailed from the bedroom, hovered midair, then landed neatly on the roof outside, without a window cracked open. They rigged motion sensors and infrared cameras, but the entity, as they dubbed it, seemed to toy with technology, shorting wires and draining batteries. The violence peaked in December, turning the house into a battlefield. Janet's bed, a sturdy single frame, flipped like a pancake one night, hurling her sprawling onto the floor with a thud that echoed through the walls. The children, shells of themselves, begged for sleeping pills from the GP, only to be yanked awake by invisible hands gripping their ankles. Bruises bloomed on their arms, scratches etched cryptic symbols on their skin. Desperate for communion, the family summoned mediums. Brazilian psychic Luis Gasparetto arrived on November 29, his hands trembling as he channeled presences, urging the spirits to go to the light. A fleeting peace settled, but it shattered by month's end. Then came the voices, the most chilling chapter. On December 10, as Grosse questioned Janet during a session, her slight frame convulsed. Her voice dropped an octave, emerging as a gravelly growl, like gravel churned in a cement mixer. "Just before I died, I went blind. Then I had a hemorrhage and fell asleep in the chair," it rasped, eyes rolling back in her head. The entity named itself Bill, later Bill Wilkins, a former resident who had perished in that very armchair from a brain aneurysm in 1963. To test it, Grosse summoned his teenage son Richard, who grilled the voice like a barrister. "Where did you live before?" "In this house," it barked. "What street?" "Green Street." Chills rippled through the room, the details matched public records. Bill taunted them, whistling tunelessly, barking like a rabid dog, even claiming credit for electrocuting the family's goldfish. When investigators taped Janet's mouth with gauze soaked in water to stifle ventriloquism, the voice persisted, muffled but defiant. "I ain't moving." Christmas 1977 marked the frenzy's zenith. Books and pillows orbited Janet's room like debris in a tornado. The family budgie choked mysteriously in its cage. Outside, on December 15, Hazel Short, the local lollipop lady, glanced up from her post and froze. There was Janet, horizontal in the second-floor window, 4 feet off the ground, arms limp as if suspended by wires from heaven. Beside her, tradesman John Rainbow gaped as the girl bobbed gently before dropping back inside. She was just floating, Short later testified, her voice quavering. Inside, a curtain coiled around Janet's neck like a serpent, tightening 8 times over the case's duration. Enter the heavy hitters, Ed and Lorraine Warren, the demon-hunting duo immortalized in the Conjuring films. Arriving in May 1978, they witnessed a barrage, rucks materializing midair, wallpaper peeling from walls as if clawed by phantoms. "This is demonic," Lorraine declared, her eyes glazing in trance. They performed blessings, but their visit stirred controversy. Critics accused them of sensationalism, pushing for film rights amid the family's desperation. Yet for every convert, a skeptic sharpened their blade. Magician Milbourne Christopher infiltrated the house on December 19, catching Janet red-handed, sneaking a tape recorder under the bed, bending spoons with sleight of hand. "It's all tricks," he scoffed in his report. Psychologist Chris French later dissected the tapes. The levitation photo? Janet trampolining on her bed, a gymnast's bounce frozen midair. Ventriloquist Ray Allen mimicked the gravelly voice effortlessly, attributing it to Janet's adolescent vocal folds. SPR's own Anita Gregory filmed Janet banging a broom on the ceiling to fake knocks, whispering to Margaret mid-trance. The girls confessed to faking 2% of incidents, banging drawers for effect, but swore the rest was gospel. "We were terrified," Janet recalled decades later. "It wasn't us." By October 1979, after a Dutch medium's healing rite and a priest's blessing, the fury ebbed. The Hodgsons moved on, literally, to a quieter street, though Janet bore scars. Months in Maudsley Hospital for tests, blackouts erasing chunks of memory. Peggy passed in 2003, Maurice Grosse in 2006, but the echoes linger. Playfair's 1980 book This House is Haunted immortalized it. The Conjuring 2, 2016, dramatized the Warrens' angle. A 2023 Apple TV Plus docuseries unearthed fresh tapes, reigniting debate. Hoax or haunting? As playwright Danny Robbins noted, it's murky, complicated, deflecting skeptic inquiry. Because it happened in our backyard, in an era of strikes and strife, mirroring our fears of unseen forces unraveling the everyday. Janet, now in her 50s, stands firm. "It follows you. It never left me," Margaret echoes. "People can say what they want. We know what we saw." Was Enfield a portal to the other side? Are two girls' desperate bid for wonder in a drab world? The tapes hiss on, unresolved. So what do you think? Poltergeist or prank? Drop your theories in the comments. Believer, skeptic, or somewhere in the gray. If this spine-tingler hooked you, smash that like button, share with a ghost-curious friend, and subscribe for weekly dives into real-life chills. Next up, the Amityville Horror, a blood-soaked saga that claimed 6 lives and cursed a dream home forever. Until then, stay curious, stay brave, and lock your doors. Some houses never truly rest.